Tshidi Madia in for Clement. So we're speaking a little bit earlier on about the Israeli-Iran conflict. And I mean, I guess they're saying we're in uncharted waters, that you've never seen the fall of an empire, that it's actually about the United States. That'll also explain our relationship with the US, isn't it? We move on now to focus a little bit on young people. I have been saying earlier that my head is constantly thinking about the youth of 76 versus the youth of 2025, the fees must fall generation. So that's a lot of what I've been going back and forth about. But also we'll speak about violence. If you've got questions about how gender-based violence impacts young people, please feel free to call in. Our guest, Phinah Kodisang, will be able to shed some light on what's happening in our country.
Join us.
Let's walk the talk.
This is 702.
So, as I understand it, young people in the country are paying a heavy mental price for a crisis that's become painfully commonplace. That's gender-based violence, whether in their homes, in schools or communities. Exposure to inappropriate conduct ranging from bullying and harassment to sexual assault and rape has left a silent psychological burden on children and adolescents. It is pervasive, guys. It is relentless. It is a daily reality for so many South Africans. So we're going to try and get a better understanding of how the violent figures that we speak about, the violent stories we tell every day, impact young people. I'm joined now on the line by Phinah Kodisang, who's CEO of the Soul City Institute for Social Justice. Phinah, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Tshidi, and thank you for having me.
Let's speak about gender-based violence in the sense of young people. I mean, I spoke about, how and what I understand. And when I look at it, I go, oh, you're looking at, is it murder? Is it rape? Is it abuse, violent beatings? When we look at it broadly and we look at it as far as young people are concerned, what is the South African picture?
We see a lot of intimate partner violence. So young people are in these relationships that are complex, and the complication is the socioeconomic background of these young people puts them in that vulnerable position. We see a lot of older men preying on these young women. So if you thought the lesser phenomenon was something that is long gone, we still have it. It's still prevalent, and it's now the younger older men, right? By younger older men, I mean the 35-year-olds who are preying on your 15-year-olds, your 17-year-olds. Instead of going to their age mates, they target these girls that are still in school, And so we see a lot of that, and we see a lot of young people being desensitized to violence. It's like it's so normal because we are not acting, we are not seeing the justice system also doing its part. So you take it as it's a normal part of a relationship to be abused physically, emotionally, and to be sexually violated as well.
I want to take it a step back a little bit. You spoke about how it's young men and it's young women, and you also spoke a little bit about background. Let's speak about these underlying causes. What kind of men? What is the image that comes to mind? What fuels these young men to put themselves in a position where they're preying on young women? Is it a power thing that drives where they are, and even their behavior? What is the influence? Before I even speak about the women that you mentioned, what is the behavior and the past and the influence that would drive young men to also not only target teenagers for relationships in the intimate partner violence space, but to also want to go, not find a peer, not find an adult, but go and prey on a young girl, and then let that extend to being a physical thing where they're violent or even psychologically violent with them?
It's about power. You said it correctly, right? Power is at the center of this behavior that is driven by wanting to be the one in control, but also intergenerational trauma that we struggle to deal with. We carry a lot of traumas that have been passed on from one generation to another, and this cycle of abuse does not seem to go, because I believe it's an area we have not really dealt with. There's a culture of silence around behavioral patterns in communities, in families, and so you see young men observing and actually emulating what they are seeing, and feeling good about the power that they have. And the influence of media, there's this Kate, I forget what his surname is, and I think the Netflix series Adolescent was trying to show us that exact thing, where parents are not engaging with their young men, but there's somebody on social media, somewhere in some circle, who's speaking into their ear about how they should behave as men. This thing of we are men, right? That culture of now when you come from Entabeni, you are a man, and the only way you can show your manhood is to have power over a woman. And, when you deal with women who are matured, who are older, who know their rights, it's a bit harder. So these young ones are still vulnerable. They still want the material things that you offer. It's not like they are rich, honestly. It's not that they have millions, but whatever amount that they can offer to buy that airtime, that meal at a particular restaurant, that outing, for them is now possession of this young woman. They can't come for women like you and me, because we make our own money, So on that front, they are already challenged.
So it's socioeconomic, in essence, part of what's driving the young women. Let's speak about the impact it has on who they are and who they want to be, their aspirations, who they are in educational spaces, their confidence in those spaces. So be it a man or a young man or a young woman who's experiencing the kind of violence that we report and we speak about, how does it impact their educational journey, their outcomes, and even their pursuit of opportunities for themselves?
I think let's stick a bit to how media then plays a big role, and social media in particular. How the trends of young women having whatever that the hair that they have, the bags that they have, the type of phones that they have, the type of trips, that it makes young people aspire for that, and many of them who show having those, it's few who say, I did it for myself, right? It's many who say, indoor must provide, and therefore I want a man who can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so already with that, young women are placing themselves in a position of vulnerability, because how are you going to negotiate one condom use in that type of a relationship where somebody already has power over you, and their leverage is that if you don't give me what I want, I withdraw the benefits that you are getting from me, and as much as most of them would also use this as an opportunity to get money to further their studies and education, it's also about that can be withdrawn at any minute. So you try to do whatever to please whoever is the provider, in this slang language, yaska bora moreki, right? So that psyche of Oscar Bora Mureki also makes you not challenge and not even report where you feel I'm not liking this, because now Mureki will take their resources. So honestly, it's a position of vulnerability. You are subdued by somebody who has something that you aspire to have, and they are using it, as leverage to control and to abuse you. So when it comes to young women, that's what we observe. That's what we hear when we engage with young women in our clubs. That level of vulnerability where they feel helpless, because what else am I going to do? This is the only way I feel I can get to where I want to go. And when I'm there, I can then now start exercising my right to say no. You understand? But at that point already, you might have died by the time you think
Exactly.
you're going
Many
to
young women don't
exercise
get to where they
that
want to
right.
be.
Exactly.
I'm going to take a very quick break, Phinah, and then I'll come back to you. We'll continue with our conversation after this. Let's take a quick break.
702 Podcast
on primemediaplus.com.
10:48. We are discussing the impact of GBV on young people, on the youth of South Africa. Joined on the line by Phinah Kodisang, who's the CEO of Soul Cities Institute for Social Justice. Phinah, we're speaking about the impact of the violence in their everyday lives of young people, because they are students, some of them are trying to start out with their careers, and then they're dealing with this monster in whichever shape or form, be it from the parents, be it a partner, and I think you said we're mostly seeing intimate partner violence. How does it impact who they're trying to be in the world and how they project themselves in the world?
You know, the health risks you cannot avoid, because like I said, if you are in this type of transactional relationship, you know, it's hard to negotiate safety in that relationship. So you are most likely exposing yourself to sexually transmitted infections, you know, if there's no condom negotiation and no condom use. But the psychosocial impact, I think, is what we see the most. In fact, I know that studies would tell you it's around 40% of young people who are in this type of abusive relationship who contemplate suicide because they feel like there's no way out, you know, and the pressure also of trying to maintain the standard, you know, that keeps you in that relationship. The social pressures that come with it makes it hard for you to try and move out of those relationships. So the psychosocial impact, the health risks, pregnancies that are unwanted, you know, also as a result of, you know, being in this type of relationships where you are coerced, you are manipulated into having sexual intercourse. Sometimes it's even rape itself. It's not even, you know, a manipulation. You are literally raped.
But how isolating is it as well? Before we even try and look at solutions, how isolating and how isolated are these young people?
They are, because look, we come from society that one is very judgmental, but also have high expectations on young people, you know, and on the other hand, that is very inactive in trying to solve the issues. And you know that you would be in a home as a girlfriend where your boyfriend is beating you up and the family is listening to your screams and they're not doing anything about it. We've seen those, you know. So that's the kind of society that we live in. Young people navigate relationships in that kind of normalized society where, you know, abuse is accepted. It's not challenged. You know, relationships. We saw a case recently of a young woman who went on a date and never made it back home, you know, because, again, there's that complexity of how everything within the system does not work together. So on one hand, you have the law that is failing. On another, you have social pressures, power imbalances in the mix. You have economic dependence. So there's just a lot, Tshidi. And we are not able to deal with each layer, you know, uprooting the causes of those vulnerabilities as they happen in each layer as a society. In fact, we are more the responsive kind of society and not the preventative kind of society.
Very reactionary. They always accuse us of being reactionary. I want to play you a couple of voice notes, at least one, Phinah, before we continue, before I speak to you, because people are speaking about the death penalty. That's something that's not in our constitution. But first, please listen to this.
Great topic, Tshidi. It's amazing. The lady says the parents are not speaking to the young men. I can say the same thing, that the women are not speaking to the ladies, to their daughters. their daughters approach us. I'm a 45-year-old, but they approach us, these school kids in high school, because of material things. Their friends that they have because of money. They approach us. They approach you in the taxi when you are going to work. They approach you wherever. Actually, that's what I can say. But I'm a married man, been married for years. I have 3 boys and I have 1 girl. So, but these women must speak to their daughters also.
Thank you so much for that. But also now you're an adult. You're the grown-up in the situation. So it's also, I think, your responsibility to correct that kind of behavior as you see it. But I do take the point that you say that parents must speak to their children across the board. I have nieces and nephews. I speak to both. Phinah, young women aren't being spoken to enough either.
They are being spoken to, many programs. And if you listen to the pushback that is there, is that, what about the boys? We've left the boys behind.
Oh, yes,
we are doing so much with the young girls. Many programs are about empowering young girls and nobody's talking to the boys, But he's right in that it's not a case of, binaries. It's about everyone must know the boundaries. Everyone must respect those boundaries. And consent must be sought out. And when consent is withdrawn, even after it's given, it must be respected, across board, right? So it's not that it's only boys who must be spoken to, but the narrative is always that we don't speak to boys, we leave them behind because many empowerment programs are focusing on the girl child.
On the girls. All right. We've got Maxwell in Port St. John's. Hi, Maxwell.
Hi, Tshidi. How are you?
Good. Go ahead. Phinah's listening.
Okay, yes. I just wanted to say to the analysts there, I'm listening to such a great conversation, but I think they are not focusing more into the boys. And I think if the education can be balanced between the young boys and the young girls. So because those young boys, as time goes on, there will be older men, older boys as well. So if they don't get that education on the importance of what the analyst is talking about in relationship dynamics and also the societal norms of the relationship aims. So I think we will keep on talking on the same thing because it doesn't look like the problem will be solved because the boys will be left behind. Okay. So that's my take on this whole conversation.
All right, thank you, Maxwell. Phinah, I have run out of time, so your parting shots as you speak about the boy child, who everybody keeps saying is left behind. Once again, you said the pushback will be about the boy child, and there it is.
Very true. But you see, if we don't address our cultural and social norms, Tshidi, we are going to find ourselves in problems. We know that when boys go in Tabeni, whatever that they are taught there, elements of it are toxic, right? The culture of once they come back, they need to test whether their tool is working. And how they test these tools is through violation of young women. We need to teach boys that they don't own women as much as we teach girls in response to what that man said, that, look, don't go chasing problems. When you want resources, there are many avenues that you can explore rather than throwing yourself, using the men's words, throwing yourself at married men who are then going to take advantage of you and leave you, broken and sometimes with an illness and a child, and they will not be there to even help you raise that child.
All right.
So we really need to help our youth, as I close, to help our youth know that they have the power themselves. They need to own that power and not give it away.
That's it. I'm going to leave it on that note. Thank you so much. Phinah Kodisang is the CEO of the Soul City Institute for Social Justice. The youth must know they've got the power. Agency is yours.